The D4, Master of Suspense. There's so many ways to apply imminence, haste, panic even. Without these elements, it will be town for days.
Greetings, programs. Hello over there. Man, are you... Hello? Oh, it's a camera, not a person. I keep forgetting that. Well, you don't want to be playing a bunch of D&D without a delicious cold beer. It's just Alaskan Amber, but you know, it's good enough for old hankering. Welcome back, everybody. It's Dungeons&Dragons once again, and man, is there a lot to do these days. I tell you, it is on like squeaky from up in here. Am I not the center of the universe? Why? There's a whole bunch of D&D going on up in here, and I'm gonna bust right on through it. What is the most important thing you can do as a DM? Damn, that's a big conversation to have. But I think I'm going to go ahead and plant my flag on what I think the answer is. So welcome back to Key Mechanics. It's Dungeons&Dragons, Hanker and Fernale, your old buddy here, just trying to help out. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to get through it with sheer willpower, courage, faith, and skill. And if I'm a good DM, it's only because I stand on the shoulders of great DMs. And I'll tell you what, you cannot let your session drag. Now, drag is that moment when you sense like you're having conversations, your voice acting is not so hot, your players are kind of, yeah, maybe they're buying things and like, what are we doing? Where were we going again? What's going on? No, you're not going to do any of that stuff. Moving. All right, this is Key Mechanics series. This is about get it moving. This is about timers. So you guys know how I believe in room design. Well, you got your timer, you got your treat, and you got your threat. So we are going to cover those three things. Each one is a key mechanic, and I cannot emphasize it enough. I can't over-exaggerate the value of the timer. Timer. It's not just, okay, I'm going to roll D4, and in that many rounds, the world explode. No. That is not how you use the timer. And you don't just use it to like arbitrarily make danger show up and like, what's going on? No. You're better than that. So it's especially the beginning of your session sometimes is when things are most critical, right? So you guys all got your best practices down pat. So you roll up, everybody's talking, getting their sandwich, get your soda, and everybody get at the table, right? And when you're ready to play and you realize everybody's ready to play because you're astute and smart and sensitive in that way, then boom, break out your recap. Previously, or if you guys remember, that's how I describe it. If you remember, last time we bo-da-do-da-do and do-da-do-da-do. So whatever, however you intro your recap, have a ritual to it so everybody knows, all right, all the silliness is over, we are diving in right now. And if you set the right precedent with your players about what diving in means, they know it's time to shut up and like get in the game. Because if they don't, they're like gonna die. Like it's on. Here it comes. You know, they should kind of be thinking, this DM's crazy. If he says like the game's starting, like we're gonna be rolling initiative within 30 seconds. That is a great ritual for them to believe in and participate in and be ready for and kind of be like, nah. All right, so that's how you're gonna get your session started. That's the first form of timer that you're going to apply. The timer of how long do you let the table settle, and then when that timer runs out, which is completely up inside your weird brain, boom, we're starting play, guys. Get ready, get your party on the group. This is our first board. If you remember last time, blah, 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 and hit it. Okay, so now timers. There's a million different versions of them. I've set up 3 examples here. This is the chase room. So this is the timer that you would call like a chase timer. And this is not the easiest one to run, but this is the lowest DC one. So who knows what level your characters are, but this is the lowest DC. So I'm just giving suggested DCs here. So this whole room, this whole chase, this whole mess is all DC 15. This is the chase timer. Over here, we have the swarm timer. The swarm timer is a middle DC. So I have it at a 17. This one basically is a lot like in Moria, where the goblins are all going to break into the tomb of Balin. Very similar tone right here. And then finally, DC 20 on this one. And this one I would call sort of the Imminent Doom timer. Imminent Doom. So you've got the Chase, the Swarm, and Imminent Doom. Now, even though Imminent Doom, which is this sort of poison toxic board that you see right here with an entrance right by me and an exit right around this corner here, and then this weird glob and all this poisony, horrible stuff. This is a DC 20, so this is going to be really fun for you to watch your players continually miss checks. So it's just a matter of what check you want to pick, but they will be constantly struggling to try to make a single check, and then you're going to use that check to slow their movement, and this is what's going to create the time element. So it sounds like I'm just jumping right into it. I'm not even going to give like some nice preamble comments and warm you up to what timers are all about. I'm going to assume you guys watched other room design videos where talk about how to use timers. The main thing you're doing with a timer is pushing the game, constantly push, push, push. You don't need to just set up situations and then let them resolve in whatever amount of time the players decide it takes. Hell no. You're going to press them constantly forward. And if they leave things behind and they stumble and the other thing happens, it's all part of the excitement. Now the key to making this work is that your story needs to be constantly evolving as you're pushing the timers. So you can't just say, okay, the timer's clicking down, get ready to die. What do? No, the environment is constantly changing. If you have any NPCs or creatures, they are like going through this shift. So you've got two, before we get into the three scenarios, the types of timers, you've got two tools that you're going to need at the table as a DM if you really want to do an awesome sensation of pushing time. The first one is the legendary 1d4. This is what I call the Suspense Dice or the Impending Doom dice. This is just known as something's going to happen. And you guys know, I don't use a GM screen. I do not believe that it's the right thing to do. You are a player in the game just like your players are. No fudging, no fake dice rolls. So if I roll my suspense dice, my time dice, I deal with the consequences. And it's one of the most fun roles that I get as the DM, because me succeeding and failing is not really my biggest thrill. For me, my biggest thrill as the DM when it comes to dice rolls is how much do I need to either compress or expand the action. Or maybe, let's say I'm rolling like Spawn. So I'm rolling 2d6 spider spawn, It's an exciting moment for me. I want to roll high, and the players desperately want me to roll low. So that's a really exciting roll. The 1d4 roll, if you build your party up to it, is probably for the DM the most fun roll of the whole night. And you'll get to make, 3 or 4 of them through the night, maybe up to 6, depending on how you're running your timers. This is super fun. If you roll a 1, your character should be terrified. And if you roll a 4, they should feel sort of comfortable and ready to strategize. And you, as the DM, if you roll a 4, you're a little like, well, they're going to have quite a bit of time before I really bring the thunder, so maybe I'll bring it even harder, right? And if you roll a 1, you might even want to nerf one of your opening waves or whatever you're planning, because it just might be too intense and too fast for them. Why a 1d4, you say? Why not a 1d12? Why not a whatever? If you have a full group, which in my mind is 5 players, I would never go above 5 players, and I recommend you do not do it. Don't go above 5. It's very difficult to handle. But if you have 3 to 5 players, which I think is the game, that's it. 4 rounds is actually quite a while. A round, even when play is moving really quickly, is maybe 2 to 5 minutes. So 4 rounds is 20 minutes to 30 minutes, I don't know, give or take. That's a long time in the modern world. 25 minutes in 2015 is about 3 times as long as 25 minutes in the 50s. And you can quote me on that. So acutely aware of every little microsecond that's passing nowadays of what we could be doing, should be doing, did yesterday. 25 minutes of game time is a lot of time. You can't be letting players muck around for 25 minutes and kind of have a conversation. And, oh, by the way, there's a minotaur like charging, it's like spitting blood and running through the forest at you. Well, we're going to talk about, ammo inventory for 15 minutes. No! Don't let it happen. Okay, so you're like, I agree with you, Hankerin. That sounds cool, but how? How do I do that without just being a big jerk to my players? Coaster. And that is the second tool. So the first tool is you want your 1d4. You want it to be really bright and really easy to read. You want to put it right up on your DM rolling box or in a high place where everyone can see it. Count it down when it's your turn. When it reaches 0, remove it, and boom! Whatever's going to happen, happens. The second tool is one of these great little sort of boggle timers. The 3 cases. Now we were going to start with Impending Doom, right? So the DC 20 room, it's going to be really hard for players to make checks. As they enter this door and come across this rickety bridge, they're going to fall off the bridge is going to collapse, they're going to need a rope. They fix it, they get across, and then there's this gelatinous mass that's oozing out. Everything's slippery, sticky, poison, corrosion. Some guy's shield dissolves. They're just like, oh, this is terrible. And then right when they thought things couldn't get any worse, they noticed that the whole room, this whole void around the room, is filled with these trembling eggs. And they're all big. They're bigger than a man. They're this size. And they're all trembling, and they notice they crack. When the first egg cracks and that first insect leg comes out of the egg, all creepy and scary, roll your dice. Okay? I got a 4. So the players now have 4 rounds to get across to this exit right here. Now, as a DM, this is a very interesting moment for me because I'm like, whoa, 4 rounds, it's kind of a lot of time. I think I'll go ahead and lock this door. So I'll put a lock on the far door, make them either pick it, destroy it, whatever. If you're a little more cruel as a DM and you kind of have a precedent in your group for trapping doors, then trap the door. Put a really simple trap on it. And I'll do another video on door traps. There's plenty. So 4 rounds from now, all of these giant cockroach slime eggs are all going to hatch, and these things are just going to pour into the room and devour the room. It will be an unfightable foe. So the players need to go through here. DC 20 is very difficult check to make for anybody. They're going to be missing checks and slip sliding in this thing. It's going to be a big wreck. Some guy's going to tie a rope around his waist and jump down. Another person's going to fall. And I took a bunch of damage. And dear God, this is crazy. And there's nothing even in this room. But they're going to freak out. They're going to freak out because they know time is limited. It counts down to 3. It counts down to 2. It counts down to 1. They're just like, 2 of them are straggling behind. They don't quite make it. The eggs hatch. The things fly out. It's just, damn it. Oh, God, pick the lock. For God's sake, get out of here. So you just did about a half hour to 45-minute encounter with no real enemies or complexity of any kind. The only numeric mechanic you hit these guys with was the DC 20 on the checks. So that's like dex checks to slip and slide, con checks not to get poisoned, strength checks to hold on to each other as they pull each other out of the slime, and your D4, which determined how long they have to get through this thing before just death unfolds. That is Impending Doom. Really easy to run, really scary, and a classic timer. Okay, the next one is the Swarm. Now this is mid-grade challenge. I've got a DC 17, so they're going to be making a lot more of the checks. These guys are basically barricaded in a room. There's a boulder in the doorway and a ton of spiders. As they barricade themselves in, they realize the exit is blocked with a boulder too. This whole place is, very old and collapsy like Moria, sure. The spiders are scratching on all the walls of this chamber. And as they scratch, I know we're doing a bug theme here, but hey, whatever. In 2 rounds, the bugs are going to scratch through the door. Now, you might be asking, story-wise, isn't it a little strange that the players know that in 2 rounds these things are going to break through? Yeah, it makes no sense for the story. But I always just chalk it up to, it's like a 6th sense that the player has. The player and the character, more so, the character has a 6th sense where they're like, there's only moments. We only have moments before it happens, right? So in actual game world time, yeah, it's a little flexible, but I believe that the players should be exposed to this stuff. I think it makes it way more exciting. If I roll the D4 behind my screen, there's no effect at all. I can spring whatever I want on them whenever I want. So how do you run the Swarm timer? Well, the bugs are scratching at the door in the barricade. There's 2 rounds. I give the players 2 rounds. They try to chip away this exit here. They fail a couple of times, let's say. The spiders start pouring in. I remove this barrier. These spiders are coming in. Maybe there's a gap that they dig in the wall, so they're also coming in here. There's a key difference here. The swarm timer is sort of a spawn timer. It says you're going to get 2 rounds before they start coming. In Impending Doom, once I run out of time, there's no fighting it. It's just whoosh. It's like lava filling the room. But the swarm timer is basically, there's a ton of enemies you may or may not be able to defeat, and they're going to start pouring in X time. So give that one a try. That's the swarm timer. Really easy to play out. Just be sure you have all your monster stats ready so you can run it really quickly, because once you put this timer dice on the table, man, people start freaking out. Everything starts happening really fast. Okay, so finally we come to the sort of the most complex one, which is the chase timer. Now, Out of the Abyss opens up with a big chase through the Underdark with the drow prisons and the toadstools and the myconids and all this stuff. But I've already seen videos appearing of people really failing to catch any of the haste or speed or panic of a chase. They're just playing humdrum run-of-the-mill D&D, and it's supposed to be like this big action-packed escape and chase. How do you keep that energy moving? Well, if you've ever played any video game like F-Zero or frickin' Zaxxon or anything, you have a tileable environment, a repeatable environment. It's like when Scooby and Shaggy are fleeing and they keep running past the same vase over and over, right? That's a tileable environment. You're going to do the same thing. So you just line your board with bushes, and if you can imagine it, we're going to cross this board, and then we're going to cross it again. So here are my good guys. It's a paladin and his faithful dog. Here are my bad guys. 3 sort of henchmen and a big blood-spitting, drooling, glowing-eyed minotaur. Okay, so for the first board, there's a zigzag of rocks and then a tangled-up tree, and you have to get through the tree and get to the far side and escape. You're running a DC 15 room, so they're making dex checks and everything to move through here. So are these guys. But the trick is the Minotaur can move double all the time in these big straight lines. So he's like, it's very hard to get away from this guy. Okay, tileable environment. They reach the end of this board. I reset the board. So this time, the way is completely blocked by stone. The tree here. For chasing, since the speed is even crazier, I want to cut my time dice in half. So 1 and 2 are 1, and 3 and 4 are 2. Okay, I got a 4, so that gives me a 2-round delay. So what that means is in a chase, I go, I'm going to start at the far end. These guys aren't here yet. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 turn. Click down to 1, right? Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That was the second round. Time's up. These guys appear on the board. Did you see what just happened? In a chase, how many squares you can move and stay in combat and so on and so forth becomes critical. Rogues shine like crazy in a chase because they can do these huge moves. If you can get a druid to cast, Longstrider, I think, on one of your group, they can get ahead and start making the checks. Maybe you can dig through this. Maybe you can get up there and get a rope down to the next guy. These are going to be quick little encounters. Right? So we get the rope up, we make the checks, we jump over, and we escape. Then I reset my tileable environment again. This time we come to the remnants of some kind of an old settlement. And there's this forge down in here that this old man has been using, and some old hermit. And once again, we start on the far side of the board. I roll my suspense dice, I divide it in 2. It's 2 again. So they've got 2 moves to get into position before these guys come. Now, I'll tell you what. Players do not like fleeing. No player wants to be some chump who's always running away. So they will find a moment when they say, I'm done running. Bring it. And this is going to be one of those moments. So the Minotaur comes blasting up. They say, I'm done running from you, man. This thing's over. And then, hey, Fido, pull the lever. And they use the forge to burn the Minotaur, whatever. It doesn't even matter how you play it out at this point. The excitement is in place. It gets you fired up. Just be ready to use really simple pieces of terrain. Imagine a tiling space running like an endless highway. And chase them down until they get tired of being chased. If they're just overcoming everything, put something big in their way, a fallen building, or a forest on fire, or a river of lava, something that's really hard to cross, and make that chase come to a head. Now this one's a little intense and difficult as far as keeping all the rules balanced well here. It can be kind of easy sometimes for players to get too far ahead. So I suggest trying tricks to slow them, like webs, slippery ground, difficult terrain, barriers like what I'm showing you here, wind, weather, and then also make sure that your bad guys have high moves like 7. And so that they can realistically keep up. So you don't want the rules to just break down on you so you can make a cool chase scene. That's not cool. So how do you make sure you're ready to do it with your players? Well, you know how I do. Just a couple nights or a week before you're going to play, practice it out by yourself, just like old Hankering does right here. I just come in and I play all these little scenarios out by myself without a lot of numeric concern. Because the numerics are more like in my DM's journal, but I just need to make sure I know, like, visually what I want to do. How do the mechanics work? What's fun? You know, can I use little environmental pieces as, you know, damage assists or line of sight breakers and stuff like that. And you want to have a sense of what are you going to use. You know, are you going to use some of this? Do you want to put a bridge into play? And then he's up here, he's on the bridge, and then, whoa, this is crazy because there's a bridge. And then it also has a path back here. And there's like a spire that's the remnant of some old castle, and they come running through and he tips it over, and, like, you know, all the classic stuff that I talk about all the time. But because you practiced ahead of time, you don't need a ton of notes or even mastery of all the mechanics at play. You just have a good sense of what you want to happen. Now, the players are going to blow your mind every time and do stuff you didn't plan for, and that's just, I think, one more reason to have a kind of a flexible concept of what your chase is. As long as the excitement is in the room and everybody's feeling the thrill, your chase worked. So don't worry if, you know, it's exactly what it was supposed to be, or they outlasted your guys, or flummoxed them right off the bat, or whatever. It's all good. It's all gravy. It's all D&D. The players are going to be looking to you as the DM to set the tone for the pace. So if you're kind of going like, okay, well, we're in the forest, and there are 3 guys and a minotaur chasing you down. There's remnants of an ancient fortress here, and okay, well, let's go ahead and roll initiative. You know, if you're moving slow like that, they're gonna move slow. So be ready as the DM to just start blazing through something if you want it to feel intense and fast. Talking with an NPC, you just flip this to get started. They did this in that funny reality show, The Quest, right? They're talking to those like frogmen in the swamp, and the way that they gave the actors a sense of how long to like wax profound about the situation was they just turned over an hourglass. And for the hourglass worth of time, you say, "Dear frogman, please let my people go. You don't believe in the campaign that you're fighting. The Northmen from afar are not your true enemies. It's the other guys from the desert that we haven't met in the campaign yet." And then you run out of time, conversation's over. So that you get power-packed chunks of wicked, lightning-fast gameplay that are driven by this mechanic, by the D4 timer mechanic, by a chase, by a swarm, or by impending doom in some form. Talk about stuff in the future, stuff you don't care about. I'm talking about stuff in the past. You don't care about that stuff either, baby. Ooh, gotta pull the lever on the forge and let the fire come out. It's an old dwarven fortress in the woods. That's what this chase is all about.